Hey guys, you're catching me putting the last few touches on my ugly Christmas sweater. Although I don't think it's so ugly. But I'm just putting on this Christmas Tree Applique, and I know that you're dying to find out how I made this. And it's using the granny triangle shape. So stick around and check out how I made the applique. Have fun! Okay, in order to make our Christmas tree applique, you will need any type of yarn that you like. In this case, I have Softy Baby. It's a medium size 4. You're probably going to use less than, I would say 50 grams, probably even less than that for this project. And whatever coinciding hook that you would like to use. I myself am using a 5mm hook for this project. And as usual, you'll need a pair of scissors and a darning needle for sewing in your ends at the end or sewing the applique onto the particular project that you're doing it for. So let's get started. This is actually just a little aside here. This Christmas tree applique is based on the granny square type of pattern. So instead of 4 sides, we're going to create one with 3 sides. So for this particular one, I'm starting with a cinch circle as opposed to having the circle open in the center. So we will take our yarn and create a cinch circle, also known as a magic ring. So I just take it and wrap it all the way around my fingers so that I create a nice big space here. And then I'll insert my hook to pull through a loop. And then just to secure it, I just took my fingers out there. I want to chain 1 to secure that circle in place. So I just made a nice big circle so you can see, and I just get my little short tail out of the way there. So we have a cinch circle. And in this particular example, I am going to use double crochets to create the pattern. So in order to do that, we need to chain 3 to create the height. We've already chained 1, so we need 2 more. And now we're going to create a shell, which is 3 double crochets. Now keep in mind that this chain 3 is counts as your first double crochet. So we're going to do 2 more into the circle. Remember, double crochet is to pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the second 2. Another double crochet into the circle. So there we have 3 double crochets, and that creates our first shell. We will now chain 2 to create our spacing, and we're going to do another shell. So a yarn over. So a shell, of course, consists of 3 double crochets. So that's our second one. One more. We'll chain 2. Some people chain 1. I'm just choosing to chain 2 in this example. And we're going to do 1 more shell to give us our 3 sides. So right now we do 3 double crochets and chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2. Or you can just say shell, chain 2, shell, chain 2. Okay. So now I've created my 3 shells, and I need another chain 2. 1, 2. And now what I'll do is I'll take my short tail and I'll cinch this shut. So see how it's pinching in there? So normally with a granny square, I would have done 1 more set of shells to create the 4th side. But in this case, I'm actually going to take the opportunity to cinch that in and create 3 sides. So with your chain 2 done, you want to find the top of your chain 3, which counts as a double crochet. Top of my chain 3 is right there. And I'm going to slip stitch into that to seal off the first round. Oop, a little bit snug there. And there we have it. So that is the base of our tree, or a triangle shape. So now we want to work on to round 2, and we are going to slip stitch over into the first space here. So we will go into the next stitch, the top of the next double crochet, and we will slip stitch into that one. And then we'll go into the top of the following stitch and slip stitch into that one. And then we're going to slip stitch into the space here. And then we will chain 3. Remember, the chain 3 counts as a double crochet. And now we need to do 2 more into this space to create a shell. So now we're going to create another corner here. So we are actually going to do a shell, chain 2, and shell all into this space. So we've already chained 3, which counts as a double crochet, so we need to do 2 more to finish off the first shell. Here's our third one. Now we'll chain 2 and do a second shell back into that same space. And the chain 2 always helps because it gives you a little bit more space to snuggle those extra shells in there. Okay, so there you have it. So that creates the corner. Now we're going to chain 1 to get us to our next corner. And we're going to proceed to do the same thing into the next space. We're going to do a shell, chain 2, and shell. So that consists of 3 double crochets. Whoops. There's 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to chain 2 to create a corner and do another 3 double crochets back into that same space. So this would be another shell stitch. Okay, so see, we've created our second corner. So that chain 2 helps the work bend there. Okay, and now we're going to chain 1 and repeat the same thing into the next corner. A shell, chain 2, and shell. So, oh, that's my short tail there. So I'm just going to do that again. A shell stitch, which consists of 3 double crochets, chain 2, and shell. So this project is fairly short and sweet. You can work this up fairly quickly once you understand the basic gist of granny shape patterns. And now we're going to chain 1 and we're going to slip stitch into the top of our chain 3 right there. And this will close off round 2 of our Christmas tree applique, which technically right now it's a granny triangle. So if I pull that out, so see how the 2 shells in each space created another corner? So right now this is the first 2 rows of our Christmas tree. Sorry, the red seems to be quite challenging to see. So that is, so if I just zoom in here a little bit. So this is round 1 and this is round 2 that we just finished completing. And you'll notice in round 3 we no longer use shells. We just do straight up double crochets in every stitch, except of course in our corners we need to go around the bend here. So that's what we're going to do next for round 3. So with round 3 underway, we're actually going to chain 3 here. 1, 2, 3. That will count as a double crochet that sits on top of this double crochet, also known as a chain 3. Into the very next stitch, we're going to do a double crochet. And then into the next stitch, we're going to do another double crochet. So now in round 3, we just want to create a nice solid round. We're now coming up to one of our corners. Now in our corners, we are still going to do the traditional shell shape. So we will do 3 double crochets into that space. And then we will chain 2 for our corner and go back into the same space and do a shell stitch, which is 3 double crochets. And if you need a refresher on the double crochet stitch, I've put a link in the description box below to our basic crochet tutorial on the double crochet stitch. So there we've got the top of our corner. And now we proceed all the way down this side to double crochet 1 into each and every stitch across till we get to the next corner where we would continue to do the traditional shell, chain 2 shell. So I'm just going to do the next couple of stitches with you. Now, what you want to be aware of is the top of this stitch is right here, and it's easy for it to get hidden by these stitches above. Make sure that you really get it out of the way and find the top, the proper top of that double crochet stitch. So there you have it. The next one is there. The following one is right there, so a little bit more obvious. And now our chain 1, you can either go into the chain 1 or just go into the space, which I just go into the space and it's just fine. Okay, and then the top of the next stitch is right here. So I will let you go ahead and finish that off. So now you're just simply doing 1 crochet, you're simply doing 1 double crochet into each stitch along until you get to your next corner, which is here. And then you will proceed to do a shell, chain 2 shell, just like it has here. And then you continue again down the other side. Double crochet into each stitch, and remember that the shell sometimes hides the first stitch there, so make sure to pull that out of the way. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and I will meet you at the end of round 3. Okay, we're coming up to the end of round 3, and I've got 1 more stitch to do into the chain 1 space. So I do a double crochet, and now I'm going to slip stitch to the top of that chain 3, which is right there. And there we have it. So that is round 3. So I've got the basic core of my tree or triangle shape done. Now this one is coming out a little bit smaller because this is a finer size 4 weight yarn. Whereas this was a Super Saver, it's had a little bit more, I don't know, I'll call it a chunk to it, even though it's a medium weight, but it's got a bit of a thicker feel. So that's why this one worked up just a smidge smaller. So again, take that into consideration when you are making these appliques. Think about what the project is you're doing it for, and the size hook. So this is a size 5, so it's going to stitch things up a little bit tighter than, say, a size 6. So these are some things to kind of keep in mind when you're planning your project. Okay, round 4 is actually the last round here, and this is where we're going to add this little bumpy texture, which gives it that little tree kind of feel. And it's actually super simple to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to find the very next stitch, which is right there, nestled in there, so the top of the next double crochet. Insert your hook, and you're going to do a single crochet. And that's it. That's what we're going to do for every single stitch. So let's do that again. You're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and we're into the very next stitch. We will do a single crochet. Okay, we'll chain 2 again, 1, 2, and into the very next stitch we single crochet. So it starts creating this little bumpy, ridgy effect. And once you do a few more, you'll be able to see it see the full effect. So again, we always chain 2, find the very next stitch. So into every single stitch, we're going to chain 2 and single crochet. Chain 2 and single crochet. And this will remain the same even in your corners. So you're going to chain 2, single crochet into your corner space, chain 2, and just go right into the top of the very next stitch, which is right there, and single crochet. And there you have it. See how it's starting to give this cool little ridgy effect? So just do that all the way around, and I will meet you at the very end. Okay, and we're coming up to the very end here. I've just done my last chain 2 and a single crochet, and now I'm just going to slip stitch into the bottom of that first single crochet there. And if you want, you can just leave it exactly like that. But in my case, I want to add just a little bit of a trunk here to the tree. So I am going to, now I'm right in the center here, so I'm just going to do a little bit of back stitching, if you will. So I am going to slip stitch for 2 stitches over. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find that single crochet space, and I'm just going to slip stitch into that, and then find the next one and slip stitch into that. Okay, and then I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and I'm going to single crochet back into that same stitch. Wow, the yarn likes to split quite a bit here. So single crochet. Don't worry if it's a little bit bumpy. This is the effect of the tree, yeah? So into the next single crochet somewhere in here. And remember, it's not an exact science. So if you can pull your work apart a little bit, I know it's at the top of this stitch here. So I'm going to find a space somewhere along there. Single crochet, and then the next one is right in through there. Single crochet, that's back where I came from. And so a good way to gauge that is this stitch is the exact center. It's between these 2 shells, and there's my corner. So I'm going to do 2 more single crochets on this side. So there's the next, oops, I'm going to go right in there, 1, and then the next space would be here. Okay, so that's kind of the base of a little trunk. Now I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and I'm going to do 1 more row. And I'm actually going to go right back into that same stitch. So you should have 5 stitches altogether. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's your chain 1 there. Okay, so that's it. You can do a few more rows if you like. I think for me, just keeping it nice and short is perfect effect for what I want. Okay, so again, this yarn just came out a bit thicker, but I only did 2 rows as well here. Okay, so if I place this in front, that's your effect. And again, you can actually just put a little loop a little piece of yarn through here and just make it an actual ornament on your own tree, or you can make this as an applique, which is what I'm going to do. So we are finished. So what we do now is we just snip our yarn and fasten off. And actually what I should have done is left a super long tail because then you're going to use that to sew your applique onto your project. But that's okay. So I'm going to fasten off, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a separate piece of yarn to then sew on. This particular piece, I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do with it. I have a few things in mind, but this is the one that I'm going to add on to my ugly Christmas sweater project because my I actually use this yarn to make the sweater that I have. So it's going to be that color with the red against it. So there you have it. There is your crocheted Christmas tree using the granny shell pattern. And hopefully you found that pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, as always, definitely leave me a question in the comment box below, or you can email me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com. And remember to click subscribe so you'll stay up to date on all of our crochet tutorials, or if you really enjoy listening and watching to some of our crochet stitch session conversations. Until next time, everybody, happy crocheting and happy holidays!